Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newshour agenda. Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day visit to the UAE. Just about half an hour ago, he ended his address to the Indian community in the packed Zayed Sports City Stadium in Abu Dhabi. The PM received a rousing welcome by the Indian community. In his address, the Prime Minister underlined the special ties India shares with the UAE and said that he feels like he's with his family members. He's also highlighted the brotherly relations that he shares with the UAE leadership. Notably, the Prime Minister has also talked about how the digital revolution in India is going global with the launch of UPI services in the UAE.
मुझे 2015 की अपनी वो पहली यात्रा याद है, तब मुझे केंद्र सरकार में आए बहुत अरसा नहीं बीता। 3 दशक के बाद किसी भारतीय पीएम की ये पहली यूएई यात्रा थी। डिप्लोमेसी की दुनिया भी मेरे लिए नई थी। तब एयरपोर्ट पर मेरा स्वागत करने के लिए तब के क्राउन प्रिंस और आज के प्रेसिडेंट अपने 5 भाइयों के साथ एयरपोर्ट आए। वो गर्मजोशी, उन सभी की आंखों में वो चमक मैं कभी भी भूल नहीं सकता। जब साल 2015 में उनके सामने आप सबकी ओर से यहां अबू धाबी में एक मंदिर का प्रस्ताव रखा, तो वो तुरंत एक पल भी गंवाए बिना उन्होंने हाँ कह दिया। और उन्होंने यहां तक कह दिया, जिस जमीन पे तुम लकीर खींच लोगे वो मैं दे दूंगा। और अब अबू धाबी में ये भव्य दिव्य मंदिर के लोकार्पण का ऐतिहासिक समय आ गया है। साथियों, भारत यूएई की दोस्ती जितनी जमीन पर मजबूत है, उतना ही उसका परचम अंतरिक्ष में भी लहरा रहा है।
And earlier in the day, the Prime Minister was received by UAE President as he landed in Abu Dhabi. The Prime Minister received a ceremonial welcome as well. Remember that this is the 7th visit of the Prime Minister since his first visit to the Middle Eastern country in 2015. After bilateral meetings and a mega diaspora connect today, the Prime Minister will tomorrow inaugurate the Babs Hindu Temple, which will be another historic moment. The Grand Temple sits on a sprawling 27 acres of land gifted by the UAE government. The Prime Minister thanked the UAE President as he met him today. Listen in.
ब्रदर, मैं सबसे पहले तो हमारा और हमारी टीम का शानदार और ऊष्मापूर्ण स्वागत करने के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। और जैसे आपने कहा, मैं पूरी तरह उसको फील करता हूं। मुझे हमेशा लगा है कि जब मैं आपके पास आया हूं, आप लोगों के बीच आया हूं, तब हमेशा लगा है कि जैसे मैं अपने ही घर में आया हूं। आपकी यूएई के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए जो विजन है, उसका एक उदाहरण मैं देख रहा हूं। यहां बीएपीएस का मंदिर बनना आपके सहयोग के बिना ये संभव ही नहीं था। और मेरी पहली मुलाकात थी, मैंने सिंपली आपको रिक्वेस्ट की कि जरा आप देख लीजिए, और पलक झपकते ही आपने उसका निर्णय करके मुझे बता दिया कि आप बस जगह पर ऐसे उंगली रख दीजिए, आपको जगह मिल जाएगी। शायद इतना विश्वास, इतना प्यार अपने आप में एक बहुत ही अनोखे संबंधों की ये शक्ति को दर्शाता है।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us for more, we have with us Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP. Tushar Gupta, political analyst, is with us. We also have with us Vivek Srivastava, political analyst. Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, is with us. Lokesh Jindal, political analyst, also joining us. But I want to go first and foremost to Professor Madhav Nalapat, strategic analyst. Professor Nalapat, let me begin by asking you, it's a very, very significant visit. The UAE, Qatar, both on the agenda as far as itinerary, rather as far as the Prime Minister is concerned. But with this seventh visit to the UAE, of course, tomorrow's inauguration of the BAPS temple, of course, is going to be very significant. But the Prime Minister clearly underlining, A, the personal ties that he has with the UAE leadership, and the very fact that he's gone there 7 times, once again shows how his personal connect has become very important as far as this diplomatic outreach, not just the UAE, but to other Middle Eastern countries as well. How are you looking at it, Professor Nalapat?
You're perfectly right, and it's astonishing that it took 30 years for the Prime Minister of India to visit a country that is so important in India. It's not only important because of the fact that millions of our countrymen work there. It's important because of the immense volume of remittances that go to that particular from that particular country to India. And it's very important because of the natural resources that we purchase from them, and the importance of both Abu Dhabi and Dubai as transit and trading points for India. It's quite astonishing, and it shows the disconnect between politics and commerce, number one, and number two, between words and deeds. In words, you say that you're for certain people, you're for this, you're for that, and in deed, nothing. I mean, at the slightest opportunity, if there's any kind of flight to any part of Europe, you immediately board that flight. But when it's a question of going to the Middle East, sorry, I'm busy. I'll go next year, which frankly, 30 years, it's absolutely unpardonable. I'd like to point out that, you would have gone to the Middle East. I've gone several times. Each time I have gone, I have felt totally at home, because the Arab people are so warm and friendly. And they're very friendly, particularly to Indians. Hindi, that's what they call the people of India. Of course, and the people of Kerala, part of that, they call them Malabari. And the fact is they're extremely friendly. They're very warm. And they're really a wonderful people. Right. And if they understand that you respect them, you respect their traditions, you respect them as a people, as Prime Minister Modi obviously does, as India obviously does, then that respect is reciprocated. And we are seeing this play out in a way that is unmistakable. No one can deny this connect. No one can deny the importance of this particular visit, irrespective of politics. All right.
Irrespective of politics, Lokesh Jindal, can I get you in on that? No one, irrespective of politics, can deny A, the personal connect, nor the importance of this diplomatically, the 7th visit within 9 years by the Prime Minister, and also the question as to why it has taken 30 years for such a visit to happen is a question that Professor Nalapat is raising. Lokesh.
Madhav, the relation between India, UAE, it has evolved over a period of time. There was a time period when we started signing the double taxation avoidance agreement, the free trade agreement. We saw there were Doha rounds. There were subsequent bilateral meetings happening. And then a strategic roadmap was laid down on the basis of which security, defense, trade, partnership, all these avenues were discussed, and they were gradually brought on track. And we saw, yes, certainly since 2015, that the process that had been initiated since after independence, it gradually developed, and it is becoming fruitful. So you cannot simply hush aside all what was done before and simply give credit to one particular moment. During the time period of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he had visited Saudi Arabia. He signed the convention for getting all those Indians who are there in jails back to India. In fact, there were various visits by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to the Middle East, and important agreements were signed. Yes, it's an important moment for us. We see that today there is a large Indian diaspora in UAE and other Middle East countries, and there is a significant remittances that we get from them. And the state must acknowledge it, and we welcome that.
Okay.
But then simply brushing aside whatever was done before is something I would say it's out of complete ignorance.
Well, Lokesh Jindal, one small observation. UAE was founded in the early 70s, 1971, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know how you're talking about work happening post-independence, but I want Sanju Verma to respond to that. Sanju Verma.
I'll tell you post-independence.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I say post-independence.
I believe the British forces were there till then, from the best of my knowledge.
After independence, the position that was taken by India with respect to the Arab-Israel conflict and the manner in which India showed solidarity towards democracy, it raised India's stature vis-a-vis the third world countries.
Thank you, Lokesh. Let me get in Sanju. Now you've asked a question. You've said don't brush aside what has happened in the previous decades, and fair enough. Sanju Verma, let's not brush aside the relationship that has been developed by previous regimes, says Lokesh Jindal. Please respond to it.
Okay. Madhav, I'm so glad, Lokesh asked what he did. First and foremost, let's be very clear that yes, it was in 1972 that diplomatic relations between India and the UAE were established. But Madhav, I'm sure you know this better than anyone else, and Professor Nalapat, who specializes in such matters. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the UAE in 2015. It was the first visit by a Prime Minister from India in 34 long years. And it was in 2017 then, within 2 years of the Modi visit, that our status from merely diplomatic relations was elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership. Point number 2. Point number 3, very quickly. Not many people know that in January 2023, it is thanks to Narendra Modi's insistence that the UAE became a part of BRICS. It is thanks to Narendra Modi's insistence that in February 2023, we formed the India-UAE-France trilateral for enhancing trade and commerce ties. Not many people know that in May 2023, thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's insistence, the UAE became a part of SCO Global Dialogue. And not many people know that today, out of the $240 billion annual trade that we do, Madhav, with Arab nations, $183 billion is with the Gulf Cooperation Council. And within that, $85 billion bilateral annual trade is done with UAE alone. India is UAE's second largest trading partner, and when it comes to FDI, the fourth largest FDI into India comes from the UAE. And last but not the least, it was in 2022 when both the UAE and India were non-permanent members of the UNSC that the UAE clearly said that India's demand for becoming a permanent member of the UNSC needs to be fully endorsed by every stakeholder in the Middle East. That is what Prime Minister Modi has achieved, what successive Congress governments failed to do. So जब हम कहते हैं मोदी है तो मुमकिन है, there is a good reason for it. We are not talking through our hats.
Okay. Let me bring in Ghanshyam. One by one, please, one by one. Let me bring in Ghanshyam. Ghanshyam, Professor Nalapat has a point where he says that look at not just the lakhs of Indians who are present, A, in the entire Gulf region, particularly in the UAE, B, the fact that the huge amount of remittances come from there, C, of course, Sanju Verma just referred to UAE being the fourth largest FDI source, bilateral trade increasing by 16% in the last year, a free trade agreement that has been signed in Feb 2022. All of this is a sign of, A, not just the growing trade ties, but also how India and UAE have been collaborating on the world stage as well, and are natural partners, and that also being underlined by the kind of relationship and bonhomie that we're seeing between the leaders of the two countries. Ghanshyam.
Good evening, Madhav, to you, the viewers, and the fellow co-panelists. I'll make 3 quick points. One, that I congratulate the Prime Minister on his visit to UAE and his effort to strengthen the ties. This is a continuation. Foreign policy, if it is subject to competitive politics, then you will have the kind of things that Sanju will say, but miss out. For example, the bilateral trade with UAE in 2011 and 2012 was $72.61 billion. 2012, 2013, $75.44 billion. And thereafter, 2013-14, $59.53 billion, $59.15 billion. And you look at the bilateral trade in the Modi years, it's significantly reduced. It is only now that it is coming to the levels of what it was that time. But when you are here to play competitive politics and you want to prove that Mr. Modi is the only Prime Minister India has ever had after independence, then you will miss out on important details and not look at the way this historic bonding between the two countries have happened. Indians have for a long time traded with UAE, have worked there, have contributed with their sweat and intellectual heft in building of UAE, both as a nation and in its technology, in its services. As far as the Prime Minister's effort is concerned, the efforts outside the country are for the country and they are welcome. But in the backdrop of what is happening in India, when his government is beating up farmers, there are tragic situations playing out. It looks colorless.
We will debate that. We will debate the farmers issue, Ghanshyam, in the second half of this program. I'm requesting you, we have limited time on this, one by one, please. Just 1 second, Sanju Verma. Ghanshyam, I'm just requesting you and other panelists. We will debate that and we have a full debate on that. But let's focus on what's happening in the Middle East at the moment. Since you've raised some specific points of the performance during UPA years and how the two countries' relations were, trade ties were also very high and doing very well during UPA years, Sanju Verma. Ghanshyam has cited some statistics. Please respond to it.
Yes. You know, Ghanshyam, without being offensive to you, you are lying, and that too brazenly. You know, let me tell you, I have the trade data with UAE for the last 10 years. 2010-11, $38 billion. 2011-12, $43 billion. 2012-13, $57 billion. 2013-14, $59 billion. So the last, before Modi government took over, was $59 billion. Today it is $85 billion. You are doffing numbers out of your imagination. Do not give incorrect data because I will not allow you to go unchecked. Our trade with UAE has almost doubled now. In this year, we will cross $100 billion with UAE alone. And with the Arab nations, more than $240 billion. And Madam, just one last point. It was in February 2022 that the UAE signed its first ever comprehensive economic partnership agreement called the CEPA. And you know which was the country it signed that with? It was India. And why did it happen? Thanks to Narendra Modi. Why did the UAE not sign a CEPA with India for the longest time, though we had diplomatic relations since 1972? Jawab hai, Ghanshyam? No, because you are driven by a visceral hatred for Narendra Modi.
Okay.
Don't come out and give incorrect data on national television.
Okay. Ghanshyam, you want to quickly respond to that before I go across to others?
For the benefit of your viewers, you can go to indiabriefing.com and you can look at the data. I don't, as I said, that I don't believe, and none of your viewers, I did not interrupt you, please.
What is your source?
None of your...
Okay, let him speak. Sanju, he also didn't interrupt you. Allow him the same courtesy, please. Yeah.
Well, much like me, none of your viewers believe that Mr. Modi is the first Prime Minister of independent India.
Nobody's saying that.
No, BJP says that all the time.
It's
right?
okay.
Along with
it's
Kangana
okay.
Ranaut. This is the Kangana Ranaut mode of BJP, that they believe that India...
Okay. I don't want to reduce this into a slagging match. Please, one second. Let me bring in Vivek Srivastava on a very important point. Vivek Srivastava, it is a fact that India's hold, whether it's the UAE or other countries in the Middle East, for instance, a recent instance of Qatar, where just yesterday we saw 7 of the 8 Navy personnel who've been in jail for several months now actually walking out. And that many believe would not have been possible without the personal intervention of the Prime Minister. And it's a country that he's visiting tomorrow as well.
No, I mean, we should praise the government when something good happens, and definitely, yes, this happened and people came back from Qatar and we are all happy about it. However, calling the Honorable Prime Minister a Vishwaguru or this government is absolutely wrong. You had G20, Xi Jinping did not come, Putin did not come, you did not allow any press conference to happen in Delhi, and 24 hours down the lane, Joe Biden flies down to Vietnam and says, I asked Mr. Narendra Modi and asked the Prime Minister of India that the human rights records of the country are not very good. That is where
there was a Delhi declaration which many hailed.
Turkey
Vivek, what you're saying, I'm not going to contest.
Yeah.
But end of the day, can we discount the fact that there was a Delhi declaration at the G20?
Yes.
Isn't that a diplomatic achievement that all Indians should be proud of?
We have been having this kind of stuff since 1947. We are a great nation and we had subsequent great governments. So let us not try to reinvent India since 2014. You had a temple in Dubai way back in 1958. But Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru did not do photo ops or video sessions or event management because there are more important things to do.
Okay.
Yes, this Prime Minister likes a lot of event management, which is fine. But so what? I mean, and why don't the Islamophobes of this country, who try to label the Muslims as invaders, who broke temples and 3,000 mosques need to be broken down and temples reconstructed, do they have an answer today?
Okay, one second. Let's go one by one. You're asking many questions. I want Tushar to respond to each of those points one by one. A, of course, accusation Vivek Srivastava that this is all for publicity. B, that there are temples that were inaugurated earlier in the UAE as well. And C, of course, saying that what about the track record when it comes to Muslims here in India, as opposed to the outreach in the Muslim world in the Middle East. Tushar Gupta, 3 specific questions coming in from Vivek.
Good evening, Madhav. I like the clueless pause Mr. Vivek Srivastava had when you asked him about the inauguration of the temple. He was absolutely clueless, apologetic about the country doing well, about our diplomatic efforts doing well. But what is his problem with the treatment or how the Muslims are seen in India? They have been equivalently a part of all the welfare programs. They are equal stakeholders in India's progress story. You look at any field, be it women, men, any other field, science, commerce, management, anything. From students to adults, everyone is a part of the India success story. What is this desperate move by Vivek Srivastava to single out a community? What does he want to prove? And about the mosques and temples he's talking about, those cases are in the court. The court is deciding because there is a process in the country. It's a local issue. It will be decided in the court. Why are you losing your sleep over it? And also, I'm sort of appalled by how Lokesh Jindal was confusing Qatar, Saudi Arabia and UAE. We are talking about UAE. He's talking about the visits to Saudi Arabia. We are talking about freeing Navy veterans from the Qatar. He's talking about Manmohan Singh going to rescue people from Saudi Arabia jails. I mean, I understand Lokesh Jindal is from the Congress, but you cannot confuse 3 critical partners of the Middle East. These are 3 separate countries, Lokesh Jindal. But Madhav, coming to the main point, you have to understand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy has not been transactional. It has always had a personal touch. Ghanshyam Tiwari may want to throw a lot of numbers, but the trade has improved. There has been a personal touch. The Prime Minister himself has visited 7 times. Did Manmohan Singh go to the UAE? No, he did not.
Okay.
You talk about the numbers, but did he do anything
Since
to
you've taken Lokesh's name, I'm going to give him a chance. You've taken Ghanshyam's name as well. I'm going to give Lokesh a chance to rebut that. Lokesh Jindal, end of the day, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh made 4 trips to the Middle East and North Africa region, of which 2 were for non-aligned summits in Cairo, and if I'm not mistaken, the other one is another... and in Tehran, to be more specific.
Okay, yes.
The point is he never visited the UAE, which is such an important partner of India.
Well, Madhav, in fact, as Sanju Verma ji had quoted the figures, she said in 2010 there was a $38 billion that was the trade between India and UAE, which went as much as 55 by 2014. By that very statistics, we see that there was as much as 50% rise in trade during the time period of UPA. With that same progression, if you talk about now, the trade should have surpassed more than $100 billion. That means with
but
that
she's saying it's going to surpass $100 billion this year. That's what she just said.
In India and US, it has decelerated. I'm talking about the data that she quoted. Now with $85 billion, what she's talking about, if the trade between India and UAE bilaterally during UPA regime from 2010 to 2014, it raised by 50%, then in last 10 years it has not accelerated at all. Now tell me, what about this?
Okay. Yeah, Sanju Verma, but I want you to answer Vivek Srivastava, where Vivek Srivastava says that what about you're reaching out to the Muslim world, but what about the statements coming in from several BJP leaders? I don't want to get into the specifics, but there are a number of statements. Mr. Ramesh Biduri, Mr. Ishwarappa, all have made statements which have been controversial and which are being perceived or at least put out by the opposition as being opposed to Muslims. In the past, that has happened.
Okay. Madhav, I forgot to make one very important point. I'll answer your question. That in January 2024, on our insistence, the UAE was made a special invitee to India's G20 presidency, despite UAE not being a part of G20. And I think that was the turning point, the point of inflection, which further cemented the India-UAE relations. But be that as it may, Tushar has given some interesting pointers. So I won't get into Lokesh's confusion between Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE. He showcased his ignorance. But I'll just say this. Madhav, this is a question which is completely up my alley, and this is a data which Times Now has reinforced so many times. 31% of PM Awas Yojana to minorities, including Muslims. 33% of Ayushman Bharat Yojana allocated to minorities, particularly Muslims. 37% of PM Mudra Yojana allocated to minorities, especially Muslims. 36%
when it comes to all these cases which are against the minorities and Muslims,
especially Muslims.
Vivek, I'll come to you. Just 1 second, please. 1 second.
Of PM Fasal Bima Yojana allocated to minorities, especially Muslims. 9.5 crore students belonging to minority communities, including Muslims, today have access to scholarships in higher education. So Vivek Srivastava, आपका जो भाषण है, go and give it to Pinarayi Vijayan, who's a Hindu phobe. We are not Islamophobe, but you leftists are Hindu phobes. Stop being a Hindu phobe. Stop being a Hindu phobe.
The advocate fighting the Ram Janambhoomi case told me that they are not going to leave 3,000 mosques.
You love people wearing the gold topi.
No, I am not a Hindu phobe. You want the Muslims and the minorities to be second-grade citizens because you have an imaginary 5,000-year-old Sanskriti that you want to replicate now.
One second. Vivek Srivastava, please. Vivek Srivastava, please. I have asked the question that the concern that you have raised. Perhaps it's a valid one, perhaps not. But the point is, let's not get into previous debates and what others who are not present on the show today have said in the past. I want to quickly bring in Professor Nalapat before we wrap the show. Professor Nalapat, what are we looking at from here in terms of, diplomatic, developments as far as Qatar, for instance, is concerned? There is, of course, undoubtedly the imprint of the Prime Minister. The government of India has shown that not just UAE, Qatar, but several other countries, how the relations have been growing. But what's the larger roadmap from here when you talk about India and the Middle East, particularly the Muslim world, and how the Muslim countries have really acknowledged the role and the leadership of India and Prime Minister Modi?
First of all, the rulers of these states are extremely, if I may say so, they are highly qualified and very capable, and they look at facts and data. They don't look at surmises and they don't look at political charges and counter charges. We have about 220 million Muslims in this country. They are proud citizens of India, and they were very ably represented in Al Modi. You watched that particular audience. All religions were there. And it was wonderful. It was a beautiful sight to watch. Now, I don't know where this 3,000 came from. There are some crazy people who talk about 30,000. There are some even lunatic people who talk about 300,000. The fact is, the RSS chief, the Prime Minister, the BJP leadership, anyone of consequence, there are only three. And these three are because two of them are birthplaces of Lord Ram and Lord Krishna, and the third is the Gyanvapi, the original site of the Kashi Vishwanath temple that was blessed by Lord Shiva. Okay. There is only three, and no more than three. And you have Dr. Mohan Bhagwat, you have Mr. Narendra Modi, and somebody is talking of 3,000, somebody is talking of 30,000. Look, if today I say 100,000 or something, then tomorrow you're going to come on some show and say, oh, it's 100,000. Look, secondly, I want to say one thing, Madhav. Women's-led development. That is a very important characteristic. We saw that in the G20. And we are seeing that in the Middle East. Okay. Throughout the Middle East, in all these countries, in Kuwait, in UAE, and now in Saudi Arabia under Mohammed bin Salman, women are not just claiming equality. They are showing their innate strength, and frankly, in many ways, in instances, their superiority over their male colleagues. Okay. And this is happening. The Middle East is changing. Okay. India is changing. Nobody can hold that back.
No. Once again, let's not.
This diatribe that India is a country where minorities are unsafe. The New York Times, the Washington Post. The Deutsche Welle, all these people. But where is it? This is absurd, knocking your own country down. And I'm glad the rulers of the Middle East don't fall for this kind of propaganda. And we saw that this was propaganda in the 60,000 proud Indian citizens. Please don't talk of religion on this channel. Please don't talk of two-nation theory, three-nation theory, five-nation theory. We are one nation. We are all Indians.
Professor Nalapat, thank you so much for summing up this debate because we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank Sanju Verma as well for joining us, as well as Vivek Srivastava. We have to wrap up debate number 1. Tushar Gupta, Ghanshyam Tiwari, Lokesh Jindal, stay with us for debate number 2 of the Newshour agenda.